Hey guys, welcome back to Laurence McKenna on the LFC channel, where today we're going to be talking about Liverpool beating Everton by 2-1. There is two parts to this review, essentially praising Liverpool, but then also asking some of the key questions and raising some of the consistent issues that we see in every game for Liverpool. And I'm going to go through the positives first, just because I think this team deserves some credit for winning so many games in a row. We are top of the league with a flawless Premier League record, at least in terms of wins, and it is a flawless record in terms of wins, and especially when you look at it, we've scored 11, which is the most goals in the Premier League. We've played more games than a few other people, but Arsenal could score 2 tomorrow and still not have scored as many as us. Chelsea could also score 2 today and still not have scored, and still scored equal amounts as us, and we've only conceded 5. Arsenal with a better defence, and same for Tottenham. Chelsea, Sunderland the same, but those guys haven't got the same balance and probably play a bit more defensively. So we're still looking at perfect results, and we're still looking at the same in the Champions League. And there's something about that. There's something about the balance of the game. There's something about the belief. And we've been speaking about this for quite a long time on this channel. But I wanted to double down on it, to be quite honest, because I hear a lot of people glazing Liverpool. I hear a lot of people just talking. All they do is they talk about the history and they tie that into now. And then they say, that's why this team are good. This team are growing into this season. This team are far from the finished product, and as you can see from that starting 11, there is clearly a few different versions of what we consider to be a game plan. First of all, we called exactly this formation and exactly this lineup on the channel in the preview. We said Florian Wirtz would not be started. We said that it would be because we thought that midfield 3 was slightly more combative. But it didn't actually play it in the way that we wanted it to. And I'll talk about that again more in just a second. Anyway, point is, with this Liverpool side, at the moment, I really enjoy watching that front line of Ekitike and Salah and Gakpo. I think Ekitike gets so much space, he gets a lot of time, and the way that he moves allows other people so much space to either come on the inside of that run that he makes out wide, or when he goes to the right and then pulls left, it creates space for someone like Gravenberch. It was very clear today that Liverpool were briefed, attack their left side of their defence on our right inside channel, and you're going to get joy there. Ekitike's goal came from there, and Gravenberch's goal came from there. Gravenberch got his goal in the 10th minute, very light finish, really just guided the ball onto the cross, like sort of diverted it, worked really well, a really hard technique, showing he's one of the best midfielders in the world right now, and that his front to back play, the fact that he can defend at one end and then be on the end of an attack at the other, is really impressive. And I'm still really impressed with Gravenberch, even though we didn't really control the midfield today, even though we did allow Everton back into the game. I actually think he had a pretty good game, and he probably deserves to be somewhere around the man of the match, for me at least. Talk more about that man of the match in a second. The other goal, Ekitike. The Ekitike that I think a lot of people critiqued when he came in was that his finishing wasn't quite clinical enough, and that he struggled when he had defensive pressure. That clearly wasn't on show when he finished from that side, past the goalkeeper low, perfect little finish, put Liverpool 2-0 up. And frankly, I was chatting about it. Who was I chatting about this with? Liverpool are trying to finish people off relatively early on and then move on in the game, and we're allowing people back into it. And at the moment, I don't think we've quite got that defensive balance of being able to go ahead and then sit on that lead. There's a few times now that we've been 2-0 up, and it's not that we've let that 2-goal margin slip. So obviously we didn't let the 2-goal lead slip, but let the 2-goal margin slip in this game. My personal opinion, that's one step closer to good. And we did limit Everton a lot through the middle. We were willing to give them a lot of space out wide, and we were willing to kind of allow Grealish to run at Bradley. Bradley looked very comfortable one-on-one. Very rarely did Grealish get past him. In fact, he had to go back quite a lot and try and open up the inside. And that's where Liverpool, being very compact and narrow, worked and won the ball back and then counter-attacked and kind of sprung out. It worked really well for us. But at the same time, we were also allowing Everton, I'd imagine, too much of the ball from some people's perspective, and that is where their goal came from. At the end of the first half, so after about 25 minutes, Everton began to play their way into the game, and it's unusual. I'm texting a few friends about this. I'm trying to work out what the reason is. I think we're resting. We've kind of got a rest defence mode. We kind of allow people back into the game. And I think that because we've seen such a dominant first 15, 20 minutes, the swing the other way to when we then are defending can feel quite aggressive, as if we're just allowing the opposition onto us. I think we do have to stop that, because mentally that could help the opposition in terms of momentum. But I also think that Slot and the team will be ready for a little bit more attacking from the opposition, and just to sit a little bit deeper, sustain a couple of blows from the opposition, and then break our way back out, and probably try and pick a few people off on the counter-attack. That is essentially how rest defence works for the very big sides. So yeah, I get that we are allowing teams back into the game, but I also think there's an element of balance of that evaluation and saying, first of all, we are sort of allowing them a bit more of the ball. We only dominated like 60% of the possession in this game against Everton, and it did feel a lot more like we were allowing them a lot more onto the ball. But they also fought their way into it, and I have to call out, I think Everton were really good in this game. Credit to them, they came to Anfield. They didn't just play a defensive way and then think, well, we can't match them. They are better up front. They obviously had Grealish out wide, and they had Dewsbury Hall and Dye. I thought they were really great in the way that they dynamically went forward, tried to put Liverpool on the back foot, definitely cut off our passing lanes, worked out where our defenders would try to go, tried to get in between the close passes that we had in midfield between Gravenberch and Szoboszlai and McAllister, and won it back pretty effectively. And it disoriented Liverpool, discombobulated them for a little while. I didn't think McAllister had his best game today. And that's saying something. Like, I think McAllister's a real enforcer, and he's someone who's really great at bringing energy to the midfield and just kind of bothering people. But there were plenty of times where I felt they just very effectively and very casually passed our midfield. And McAllister and Szoboszlai were caught downfield quite a few times, actually. And essentially it was Gravenberch and the defence left on their own. Sometimes that's because, Bradley is quite wide. Frimpong was quite, not Frimpong, Kirkes on the other side was quite wide. And we very often sort of got caught out of shape because we were almost, again, part of this kind of rest defence thing. I'm also trying to work out whether it's also a bit of a, hey, we're 2-0 up. Like, it's not a coasting, but it is, if we continue just to plug away, then we'll probably get more goals. And we are, again, allowing people just to be a little bit too comfortable against us, and people sort of grab on and play their way into the game, and it becomes too much of a contest. You can see Slot getting very frustrated by it, and rightly so. You can also see the team are frustrated by it. And I think that speaks to both sides of this coin, right? First of all, we feel so confident in a repeatable system that we understand teams are going to play against us. They're going to have good moments and bad moments. But we as fans want to see us absolutely dominate Everton. We want to see us almost humiliate and shame them in a way. Not in like a toxic way, but I think you just want to see your side be really dominant. When you've got this many exciting pieces assembled, and even though really that was very much a team in the shape of last season rather than this one, even though we had Ekitike and Kirkes and Bradley was very much a right back last year, bigger, but I mean, we wanted to see those new elements kind of adding a bit more dynamism and a bit more latitude to what it was that we were doing. At the times we did. But also there are times we end up thinking, okay, we could just be more on it here. And I was kind of calling out for some subs in the midfield. And when we brought on Wirtz and Curtis Jones, that felt like we had a bit more of that control in there. But again, it's not whole naivety, but it's just a tinge of naivety in there in the way that we're playing Everton. We are expecting them to be physical. We are expecting them to be crunchy into tackles with us. And there are a few times we just looked a little bit short in those areas. Salah didn't have his most influential game today, but I felt that, again, his width that he added and, what he actually brought to the game, I didn't, I wasn't like, whoa, Salah's had a great game. But I felt that, first of all, he got an assist. But secondly, he also just was a very consistent passing and sort of pivot player today. Bradley on the overlap, a midfielder on the inside of him. And it worked quite well for us. I actually thought him as kind of like a touch point for the team actually was quite good. And, you can always see, I think Salah blatantly just doesn't get a number of tackles because the opposition just want to get into him. Let me just look at my notes just for a second because I have made some notes here. Finally, I also think this confidence in the system that we have leads us to try and score some great goals. And we are putting together some really dynamic and dazzling moves. There are times where we get in the box and we're like, shoot, and there's one more pass on, and the player's trying to get it out from under his feet, and actually it would be great if could have just shot first time, the ball goes across him and we can slot it in. And that's where I think you are seeing a confidence and this, it isn't a want to humiliate, but it's a willingness to dominate the opposition and say, we're going to create more. We're going to consistently work this other team out. And Everton weren't that hard to work out today, with all due respect to David Moyes and Everton. I thought they didn't really match up very well with Liverpool. You can see Liverpool willing to get into these battles. But it means that there are times where we've made this really nice move and then we don't get a shot off and the opposition are getting their counter-attack on. I don't feel that exposed by Everton, but I think in the coming weeks, we are going to see quite a few teams who are good on the counter. We're going to see Crystal Palace on the counter-attack. We're going to see Champions League teams in the counter-attack. There might be a bit more space for us, but I think there's also going to be counter-attacks from them. We need to close these games off, is the overall headline of this game. We allowed Everton back into this. And on our bench today, we didn't really, especially if I look at the subs we made, we brought on Isak for Ekitike. Cool. I don't think Isak was all that bad, actually. I actually think he got in some really good positions. It was just Everton extremely deep, and Tarkowski's one of those last-ditch players who just loves playing Salah and Isak and making those. He made himself like a John Terry type figure today. I said it. Wirtz and Jones, but we didn't actually bring on anyone of a defensive midfielder. If I look at these lineups, who did we have in there? We had Wataruendo, we had Joe Gomez, we had, really, those are the two guys I bring on, Andy Robertson if we want to get more defensive. Which also brings me on to another good point. I thought Kirkes had a good game today. I thought Kirkes was very consistent. I think the cross they were trying to get over him, that was very clearly a weakness that people have spotted of this Liverpool side. You can get in at that back post, and he's clearly been working on that as well. But also, I think it's a frustration for him that obviously that pins him back a little bit. But obviously it allows then Connor Bradley to kind of be getting out on the other side. And I think it also means we have a midfield who need to just explode out because our fullbacks are very narrow and tucked in at the moment. And that's because we knew Jack Grealish would be doing that. There'll be games where they don't have a Jack Grealish type and we can bomb those guys on. This is the adaptability in the team that we're building. And the reason we're building an adaptable side and a side who don't need to start Wirtz, don't need to start, Isak in all these games. Very tidy team. We're trying to score pretty goals and be perfect in possession. And that is, I think, part of the overall balance of the side. There is no need to be overreactive to this game. There is no need to say, hey, this team were terrible today and allowing Everton back into it. Everton came to play, and I respect that more than I respect other sides coming in, sitting deep and then claiming foul. This Everton side is very comparable to a lot of these oppositions, and you can see even sides who on paper wouldn't match up to Liverpool as well as they could are now playing this kind of collective good football that works really well and is frankly a signature of the Premier League. Technically the league is always getting better, and I'll say the same as I did last year as I did this year. Last year, there was this top echelon of teams who were still gettable on their day, but still very, very, very good sides. And then there were this mulch of brilliant technical teams who were going to come and give you a match. And Everton have played that and are playing their way into that. I think it's easy to forget, especially when you look at the Premier League table. Let me bring up this table. Everton are 7th at the moment on 7 points. There might be half as many points as Liverpool have, but it's only 2 points off where Arsenal are at the moment, even though they've played one more game with them. And they'll be 5 points off Arsenal. They're really not all that far off the top at the moment. Everton and David Moyes have got themselves into a really good, repeatable pattern system that works really well. We've played these teams. Bournemouth, horrible to play. Newcastle, horrible to play. Arsenal, horrible to play. Burnley, horrible to play. Everton, horrible to play. Atletico, horrible to play. We've now got Southampton, Crystal Palace, Galatasaray away, Chelsea away, then Manchester United at home. This is a real gauntlet of games that we've been through here, guys. And I don't think there's really a point anywhere where we get to let up in this season. I thought, what will we do away to Frankfurt? What will we do away to Brentford? It's a really sort of speckled and challenging Premier League schedule this year for us. And I think it's mainly because I just respect a lot of these other teams. And I really do enjoy the football a lot of other people are playing. Credit to Everton today. I thought they came, they bought it, and we still played really well against them. So credit to the guys. My man of the match is Ryan Gravenberch. I don't think the midfield had that much structure, but I thought Gravenberch, again, here we go. I'll finish on this hero. Szoboszlai, not mention him in this, but we were talking about missing the likes of Trent and all these guys with the balls at the back. In games like this, Szoboszlai, some of his balls are absolutely incredible. The raking ball out that Trent used to play is now still on for us because Gravenberch sits deep and just slots it out there. And it's so perfect sometimes. But there's also times where we do get our ball picked off and it's really frustrating. And I think at the moment we were losing the ball too much in the midfield. They congested it there, then got it out wide, then we're looking to get it back in. And we defended really well against that. So overall, good. Overall, I know there are going to be people who attack us and all these kind of things. That's kind of for the birds for us. I don't really care about that. I care that we are solving these problems, that we're getting closer to a solution and a balance in this side, and that's where we're at. Next up, Southampton. Expect a very different team in that on Tuesday night. And then Crystal Palace, I think we play on the weekend at 3 p.m. And then it's Galatasaray on is that Tuesday? I think it is a Tuesday. Yeah, because we're playing them Saturday, Sunday. Yes, Tuesday, yeah. And then literally 5 days later, we're yeah, we're playing Chelsea. So a lot of games in there for us back to back to back to back to back. It's going to be a fun couple of weeks. Really fun. I think we're going to see Isak bedded even more. I think we're going to see plenty more kind of rotation of that midfield and making us hard to work out. And again, I appreciate Arne Slot for those rotation and the adaptability that he's building this team into. Two really hard physical games. You can see it is taking its toll on that midfield. I think rotating them out in midweek and having a couple of Trainioni and those kind of guys in midfield is going to be really great. Can't wait to see Rion Gamoa start. Can't wait to see a couple of the younger guys in defence start. It's a good opportunity for us to see those. A good opportunity for Mamardashvili to get out there. I'll be previewing that probably tomorrow, actually. So look out for that. If you're not already part of the membership, please go down and look at that. The Patreon gives us a better cut of membership. And of course, there is an absolutely free Discord. Go and take a look at that, and I will chat to you guys in a little while. I appreciate you looking in, and I will see you later. Much love.